Why did he keep this from us? I stood in my grandfather's attic, wiping the dust from an old leather-bound journal. The air was thick with the smell of aged paper and forgotten memories. I had always known my grandfather was a complex man, a man of many stories. But as I opened the journal and began to read the first entry, I felt like I was stepping into a world I had never known. The journal was dated April 14, 1967. Today, I made my first investment in a small school for orphans, it began. I flipped through the pages, each one filled with details of donations, charitable projects, and partnerships with non-profit organizations. Some of these names were familiar, tied to old stories my mother had told me. Others were completely new. And then I saw the words that would change my life. The family fortune lies not in gold, but in the hearts we touch. The key to this treasure is not found in vaults or banks, but through the continuation of these endeavors. I felt my heart race. What fortune? My family wasn't wealthy. Not in the way people imagine. Yes, I had built a successful corporate empire on my own, but my parents had lived a modest life, and my grandfather, as far as I knew, had died with little more than his memories. I sat down on a nearby trunk, the journal still in my hands, and continued to read. The more I read, the clearer the picture became. The fortune wasn't a physical treasure, but something more profound, a web of assets tied to charitable investments, endowments, and trusts. My grandfather had set up funds to support causes he believed in, but they weren't just donations. They were investments with a purpose. And somehow they had grown, quietly and steadily, over the decades. But why had he never told anyone? Over the next few days, I couldn't get the journal out of my mind. My office, once the epicenter of my corporate world, felt cold and distant. My meetings, my emails, my calls, all of it seemed insignificant. I kept thinking about my grandfather's words. The key to this treasure is not found in vaults or banks, but through the continuation of these endeavors. The next morning, I drove back to the old house and searched every nook and cranny, following the journal's cryptic clues. In a secret compartment beneath the floorboards of his study, I found a small box. Inside was a stack of letters, each addressed to someone different, each detailing a promise or a commitment my grandfather had made. And underneath the letters was a map. It wasn't a treasure map, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, it marked out various locations across the country where my grandfather's charitable ventures had once thrived: a clinic in Chicago, a community center in New Orleans, a shelter in San Francisco. Each location was accompanied by notes, ideas, and sometimes the names of people who had been involved. As I traced my fingers over the map, a thought struck me. What if I visited these places? What if I could find out what had happened to them? So, I did. I put my business on hold and booked a flight to Chicago. The clinic was still there, albeit barely. The building was crumbling and the paint peeled from the walls, but it was open. I walked in and asked to see the director. She was a woman in her 70s, with a kind face and tired eyes. When I mentioned my grandfather's name, her expression softened. "I remember him," she said. "He was a good man. He helped us when no one else would. We still use some of the equipment he donated back in the 70s. The more I talked to her, the more I realized that my grandfather's contributions had been more than just financial. He had invested time, energy, and ideas. I could see the remnants of his vision in the rundown clinic. Next, I went to New Orleans. The community center was now a convenience store. The vibrant mural on its walls faded and cracked. But I found an old man who remembered my grandfather, remembered the dances and the free meals, and the way the center had brought the neighborhood together. San Francisco was a different story. The shelter was gone, replaced by a row of upscale cafes and boutiques. There was no one left to remember what had once stood there. I felt a pang of loss, a sense of something important slipping away. But there were other locations on the map, other stories waiting to be uncovered. With every visit, every conversation, I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. My grandfather had left behind something extraordinary, something that was now in my hands. But what was I supposed to do with it? Back in my office, I spread the map on the table, the journal beside it. I looked at the lines connecting one place to another, at the names and dates, at the dreams that had been set into motion and left unfinished. I had a choice to make. I could continue building my corporate empire, expanding my reach, increasing my wealth. It was what I had always done, what I was good at. But now, there was another path, one less certain, one that would require me to step out of my comfort zone and into a world I didn't fully understand. I thought about my grandfather, about his quiet smile, his hands that were always rough from work, the way he had always seemed to know something we didn't. And I realized that maybe this was his final gift to me, a chance to find a different kind of fortune, one that couldn't be measured in dollars or shares. I closed the journal, took a deep breath, and made my decision. Tomorrow, I would start making calls. Not to investors or partners, but to the people who could help me continue my grandfather's work, to breathe new life into the places he had cared about so deeply. I didn't know where this path would lead me, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real fortune my grandfather had wanted me to find. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching.